What's up everyone? In today's video, let's talk about how I ended it with my narcissist and how you can do the same and never go back. And this was quite a good question that I was actually talking to one of you guys on Instagram about. One of you messaged me and we were just talking about this. How the question really I got was, how are you so strong to be able to leave and leave for good? Hey, I do want to say real quick before you watch the rest of this video, because I forgot to mention this part and it was so massively important, that the reason that this worked for me and that I knew it was going to work for me was because I wanted to change how I was going to leave the relationship. When I first was going to leave the relationship, it felt like I was trying to be so strong and I was running out of willpower time and time again, and I was not able to make it out the way that I needed to. So I decided to change my strategy and make it so that I didn't need to use strength anymore and that I could just be able to move on with calmness and not feel like I'm constantly fighting this emotion to go back to that person when I knew it was wrong. And by changing the strategy that I was doing, I didn't have to necessarily use strength to get away from the relationship, because what ended up taking over was just a feeling of complete doneness and happiness for myself that I was finally going to be done and out and gone for good. So with that said, I hope you enjoy the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'm going to tell you something that I did that probably sounded like a highly counterintuitive strategy. And this might not work for all people, but it worked for me, so I wanted to share that with you. And the strategy that I used was actually going 100% into the relationship, which sounds so highly counterintuitive. But hear me out. I was in a situation where I knew I wasn't happy with this person. I knew the negative things that were happening to me. I had actually already started reading the books and educating myself on covert passive-aggressive narcissism and learning more about what was going on to me. And the more that I learned about it, the more I guess started seeing the difference in how I was being treated and the way that I should have been treated. I started noticing the manipulations tactics. I started noticing the gaslighting. I started noticing the hoovering. I started noticing all the other little lies and manipulations and things that were twisted and used against me. And that's why I created that video on the 32 manipulation tactics that narcissists use. I can count how many of them were used against me, and I remember that after learning what they were, I was able to recognize them on the spot. I could see the triangulation in all of it. And so at that time, even though I was learning about narcissism and the negative effect all of this was having on my life, I still wanted to talk to her. I still had this curiosity in my mind of what it would be like if it could actually work. And this came because of the love bombing, I'm going to change, I'm going to be different, I swear. It won't be like that, in the future. All that, general love bombing stuff that they use, like you're like, they put out the bait and you're the fish and they're reeling you in. That's what they're doing. And then they reel you in, they take you out of the water and they leave you in the bucket to die pretty much. And the more that I learned about this massive disparity came between what was real and what I was told was actually going to happen, and it became more and more painful. And because I had this curiosity to talk to her, I knew that every time I had tried to end the relationship before, it was the curiosity that kept me coming back. It's like, curiosity killed the cat, that saying. I kept going back because I kept wondering, what if it's actually going to be different this time? And I knew that if I wanted to move on, I needed to kill the curiosity. So I actually decided to go all into the relationship. I started putting even more effort into the relationship, I started trying to communicate more, like fully, like as much as possible. Like I started trying to treat that person like I would have treated my soulmate, if you could say, my twin flame. I wanted to treat that person like the love of my life, and like there was really never going to be anybody else ever. And I was doing everything that I possibly could to treat that person with the most possible love that I could. And naturally, as things would have it, you know, a couple weeks go by, and those 2 weeks are absolutely excellent with the narcissist that has just love bombed you. At least this was true in my relationship. It was excellent for those first couple weeks. And then the arguments started coming in, the gaslighting, the manipulation tactics, they started coming up. And I noticed that, especially in my relationship, it was like a switch. I could call it. I could bet money on when it was going to happen, because it was just such a predictable pattern where I would, you know, step away supposedly when I was really just half in, half out. I would step away, she would reel me back in, and then we would start doing the relationship. It would be happy. I would start getting more and more, you know, positively involved in the relationship. And just, it was like once she had me in her grasp, then she would start the devaluing stage. And I could tell when it was starting to happen based off how I was acting. So the more lovingly I act, actually the worse the devaluing I got, because then I was able to be controlled and manipulated more. So as I kept going into that, now with my new awareness of, you know, covert narcissism and everything, I recognized that over time, I was becoming more and more sad and more depressed, and having even more and more pain on the inside, this time having the knowledge of what covert narcissism is. And this created so much pain inside of me that I knew I was getting to a breaking point, and I continued to go full into the relationship 100% and still was being treated, you know, terribly, until finally the day came where an argument came by, and I had so much anxiety in my body, like in my stomach, in my chest, like I almost couldn't even breathe. I had so much anxiety from this one argument we were having, and I hit my breaking point right then and there, and I said, that's it, this is the last time I'm ever gonna see you, like I cannot hang out with you, this is terrible for me, this is not good, like let's, you know, we have to be done forever. And it's been since that moment, since that breaking point, that I have not gone back. And essentially my whole strategy was to kill the curiosity inside of me, where I know I gave it 100%. And because I, you know, finally stopped, because I finally gave it my 100%, and I was not able to affect a change in my relationship, I knew that I could leave with the peace of mind knowing that I hadn't done anything else wrong, because obviously, you know, everybody messes up in relationships, but I knew I couldn't, there was nothing else left for me to do. And because there was nothing else left for me to do, I was able to walk away, no longer wondering what if it would be different this time. And as that curiosity ended, the last split was really different. It was genuinely different on the inside, because there was no more reason to ever go back. There was no more reason to ever try again. And so I would say that if you're in a situation, some situations are workable like this and some situations are not. I recognize, you know, with the narcissist that I was with, I didn't have any kids. I didn't have a house, you know, I didn't have a mortgage and whatnot. And some of you are in the situation where you did. Maybe you were married for years, you have kids and all of that, and it can get really messy really quick. And there may be more things that are tying you to that relationship. But in that situation, I would say, if you're in a spot where you have tried 100% and you can leave without the curiosity of going back, then do so. I can't believe I'm saying this, but if you need to kill your curiosity, you have to be really careful, but you can do it. I did it. I would not recommend it. You know, I wish I could put like a disclaimer, like warning label, do not try this at home. But you know those videos that say do not try this and people still try it? I'm going to put that, do not try this at home. But if you decide to try it, please, you have to be so careful that you don't get sucked in and lose your self-awareness, because every single interaction that I had with the narcissist I was dealing with, after I had made the decision, after I continued educating myself, I knew that I couldn't lose track of what was actually going to happen because I could nail it on the head what was going to happen. I journaled down everything I needed to know. Every time that there was something I could have possibly been gaslighted about, I wrote it down in a journal. I made sure I was not going to fall. I kept reading the books. I kept studying the behaviors. I kept looking into it as much as I possibly could so that I could recognize play by play what was going to happen, and I killed my curiosity. And then I really had no reason to ever go back because I gave it my full shot and I could not change the thing. The only reason that I know as a fact that this worked for me is because I went into that situation knowing full well I only had control of myself. And I cannot change her. I cannot change what she does. I cannot change any of that. The only thing that I can control is me. And as I controlled myself, I wasn't expecting her to change. I wasn't expecting my love to make her less narcissistic. I wasn't trying to change anything about her. I was just being myself to the fullest degree that I could. And because I knew I couldn't change her, and the relationship was still the exact same, I was able to leave away peacefully. So if you're gonna do what I did, which I do not recommend, recognize you cannot change anybody else. You can only control yourself. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.